Okay, everybody, thank you for joining me on another video. This one's going to be maybe a little bit all over the place, and I apologize right off the bat, but I really just want to take my time and I want to just go through some of this stuff. And what we're going to talk about today is how to create a cinematic edit for your photos. And that's pretty subjective, right? Right off the bat, I'm going to tell you that the way that I do things is by no means the absolute must do way of doing things. There are so many different avenues one can take to arrive at the same process. This is just the way that I do things. And a little bit of a disclaimer right off the bat. I feel that, I toss going back and forth with making videos like this about, editing and editing techniques because to be honest with you, editing for me is very subjective. I apologize if the dogs are barking and you hear them in the background. I will try to pause that when possible, like right now. Okay, we're back. And like I said, I had to do a quick pause there because the dogs were going a little crazy. And I actually kind of just wanted to gather my thoughts. You guys know the way that I am. I'm unscripted. I kind of just talk to you as it goes. I really don't plan anything out. I don't plan on doing anything differently. I just feel that I can bring you the knowledge in a more genuine way than if I was to read off a script. So today the focus is editing and editing in Lightroom specifically to achieve a cinematic feel. Now, whether you see some of these photos up here on my Lightroom library, whether you believe that they are cinematic in nature or not, that's the term that I'm going to choose for today for the discussion and this style of editing. So going forward, you can see a lot of these photos here are pushing the bluish green and kind of have that faded look to them. So there's a certain way to achieve that look. And obviously I sell a ton of Lightroom presets, and one of my Lightroom presets is the Sin Collection V2, which has, I think it's up to 20 something presets in there. And that's all well and good, but just to start off, how would I edit images to kind of achieve that same vibe? So if we were to take, say, something like this image right here, and let's just start diving into the image overall. Overall, if I go into the development panel and I just say, let's create a virtual copy, just so I can show you kind of where things were to begin with. And if we reset the image, here we are. It works this way as well, but I feel like there's a couple different things going on right now. This is a Leica Q2, so it's a 28 millimeter Summilux lens. 28 millimeters wide angle lenses tend to give you more of the atmosphere in your photos, and that's all well and good if that's what you're looking for, but sometimes I feel like people mistake cinematic for maybe more of a telephoto focal length, more of an subject isolation type image. You look at certain street photographers, I'm not going to list all of them, but you see them on Instagram, you see their work, and they're mostly shooting with 50 millimeter or 85 millimeter, and it's these portrait style subject isolation, a little bit of a bokeh situation going on, and that kind of adds to that overall aesthetic with cinematic feel. I don't really shoot telephoto, or really the most that I'll do is really 50 millimeters on the street, and I rarely do that. So with that being said, I kind of got to attack this at a different angle. So what I'm going to do right off the bat for this is to make this more cinematic is I'm actually going to go into my crop tool and I'm going to crop the image right here. I have a couple different ones. I have like a 16 by 9, a 16 by 10, but I also have the 2.39 by 1. Okay. And now cropping it 2.39 by 1 gives you that anamorphic look, okay? And I'm gonna actually use that today. Do I care about, his legs, his feet? Yeah, it's kind of important, but I'm kind of already telling you that there's an issue right here because you can see the cane jetting off. What else am I sacrificing? The top of this traffic box here and this traffic light and these highlights and the building. I really don't care about that. What I want to show you is he's on the street, okay? And I can still achieve that with this crop. So I'm going to crop it right off the bat. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to correct it. I'm going to hit auto on this and just correct it. And that kind of just gets my lines nice and straight. I'm not going to take all day on these guys, but I'm going to just show you kind of how I roll with this. If this is, now obviously this is if you're not going to use my presets. If you're going to use my presets, I mean, guys, we're looking at, something that could be very, very simple. We can just roll right into the preset pack and kind of start editing. Some of these are corrected and some of these are not, but I mean, just as starting points, there's a ton of them here. But let's just say we don't want to do that. Let's just say we want to go in and start kind of doing this ourselves. First, right off the bat, I'm going to color correct. I'm going to white balance off of something white, this bag here. It kind of changed the tone just a little bit, not really a big deal. What I like to do is I like to bring my contrast all the way down. And what that does is that kind of brightens the image, but it also gives this this haze, right? This softness of the image, which you kind of see sometimes in films, in cinematic stocks. When you're looking at stuff, you kind of see this overall softness. Okay, a lot of that is done with artificial haze. Okay, that you can use a machine to pump the haze into a scene, but we don't have that on the street, right? So we got to kind of achieve that in a different way. I'm going to take the highlights down a little bit. I'm going to pull my shadows up a little bit. I'm going to pull my whites up just a little bit. And my blacks right now, I'm not going to mess with them too much. I can pull them up a little or down. Down is going to obviously add a lot of contrast into the image, which I just took out. So if I zero them back out, let me just lift them just a little bit here. Sorry about that. I had to pause there for the dogs for a minute because, again, they tend to hear everything, so they start barking. But back to the image. Vibrance and stuff like that. I'm going to start messing with that in a few minutes, but let me just see if I can pump up the vibrance just a little bit and a little bit of the saturation. That's going to bring in some of this orange glow that I'm looking at right here. And now here we go into my lines right here, okay? So I'm going to mess with this. I'm going to put 3 points in, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my blacks, my darks down a little bit, and I'm going to bring my highlights up just a little bit, a gentle S-curve, okay? But I'm going to bring up the tail a little bit more, okay? And you may be able to tell, I don't know on, YouTube if you're going to be able to actually see that, but to get drastic, there you are. You can see it starts to bring up the shadow lift a little bit. I don't want to go that crazy with it. I just want to hook it a little bit, okay? And here we are right here. This is where we started. No, that's where we started because I reset the image, but that's where we're going to go. I should say that instead. So now we come down to your color grading and your wheels. I have all 3 wheels up here just like this. And usually what I'll do is on my shadows here, I'll introduce some like blue or teal right here. And on the highlights, I'll introduce some warmth, right? So that's the typical teal and orange that everybody tends to gravitate towards and like. Now, you can get a little deeper into this if you actually go into, let's just say you go into your shadows and actually pick the actual wheel. You can go and saturate it a lot and you can get really crazy with it. That's okay to do afterwards, but I usually just get the colors set where I want to put them right there, and then you can look at your luminance as well. Okay, so you can see that, just messing with the shadows here, you can kind of go wherever you want with these, but again, I'm trying to achieve that kind of teal, that bluish in the shadow. So I kind of just leave it right where it is, right there. You can mess with your blending, um, you know, add more or less. I kind of like it right in the center. Same with the balance. You can push warm, you can push more cold. I'm going to leave it right in the center here because everything that I added to it right there. That's where I wanted it to go. Conversely, if I go into the highlights, you can do the same thing. You know, your hue is going to change where it rolls as far as positioning on the color wheel. And then your saturation is going to be like how much you want to put. I actually want to make this a little bit warmer. So I'm going to pump that saturation up just a little bit. The luminance, I'm not going to do much with the luminance. I'm going to kind of keep that where it is. The blending, I'm going to add a little bit more blending, and I'm going to balance it a little bit more warm. So that's kind of where we are with that right now. Now the midtones kind of add an overall, like an overall color to where you want to be. Sometimes I'll push green on this or a little bit warmer, but right now I'm kind of just, as you can see, guys, nothing is an exact science, right? Because like I said to you before, it's very subjective when you edit. It really comes down to the look that you're trying to achieve. There's a lot of artists and photographers that like love warm imagery, love cold imagery. I like more cold. I like more greens and blues and cyans and teals, so I tend to push that way. But this one, I'm actually going to zero it out. I'm not going to do anything with it. We're just starting here, guys. So sharpening, I always pump my sharpening all the way up, 100%. But what I usually do is I'll hit the option key and I'll bring up my mask. So if you're not sure how to do this, all you have to do is on a Mac, use the option key and hover over this slider, your mask, and you'll see anything that's got a white highlight around it, that's where the sharpening mask is going to be added to your image. It's not going to add to anything else. So that's normally what I do right there. You can check off lens profile. It's really not going to do anything on the Leica. Now, here comes various theories as far as post-crop vignetting, okay? You can do this a multitude of ways. You can kind of bring it down the way that you want. This is the way I always do mine, 100% on every image that I shoot. When I add vignette, I take the amount down, I bring the midpoint all the way down to 0, I feather it all the way up to 100, and I do the highlights at 100. That's how I do every image. You can change it up if you want, but I tend to kind of do it the same way all the time, and then I'll go back and add the amount. Now, this isn't too bad because my subject is in the center of the frame. But if you didn't want to do it this way, you could technically add a radial gradient mask right over top of him like this, okay? And with the feather, again, I'm going to put a feather in on this as well. And what I'll do is I invert this mask, okay? So now you can see nothing around him is, everything around him is being touched except for him. And what I can do is bring down the exposure this way. What are the benefits? The benefits are you are more dialed into your specific subject as opposed to center of the image. So the center of the image is probably right here. He's over here. Not a real big deal with this image, but nonetheless, it is another way to kind of arrive at the same thing, just probably more dialed in. So right there, that's where I'm going to leave that one, okay? Now, with the addition of the newest Lightrooms, you can add more masks, right? So I can go in and I can hit subject mask, and now you can see it's picking my subject only, right? So why did it just do that? Okay, there it is. So now with this, I can mess around if I want to. I can bring up the exposure just a little bit, maybe just the shadows a little bit on his jacket. Maybe I want to make a little more contrast on his jacket, bring down the blacks a little bit. Maybe bring up the exposure a little bit on him and kind of leave him right where he is. And you can see, you know, kind of right where it is without it, with it. And, you know, it does bring a lot to the table here. It does introduce all the texture in his jacket that I would otherwise kind of lose, right? So it really makes him stand out. So that's kind of where I'm going to go with that. I'm going to leave it just where it is. And then now what I'm going to do is now I'm going to start fine tuning my image. And what do I mean by that? I'm going to start messing around with hue saturation sliders. Now, there's a couple ways you could do this. You could just start picking different colors that you want, or you can actually use the small little target points right here, and you can go directly over what you're trying to target. So for me, I don't really care for these yellowy lights. I kind of want them more orange. So I'm going to slide them more. And you see what's going on here? I'm picking the color that I want because I put that little target point over, and whatever way I adjust them is the way that they're going to go. I don't want them red. I want them like a nice kind of orange. So right about here is good for me. That may not work for you. Again, subjective. Everything is subjective. Saturation, you can do it with saturation as well. You can go back over to that color and you can really pump up the saturation, or you could take it down, okay? I'm going to bring it up just a little bit because I do want it to glow. I want everything to glow here. And the luminance kind of gives you the same type of thing as far as, you know, how bright it'll be, or, you know, you can bring it down really dark and that looks like garbage, but I'm going to bring it up just a little bit. I really apologize for the dogs. The dogs are going crazy today, but that's the story of my life. Whenever I try to do a project at home and record, they tend to find themselves occupied with something. Let me pause this here for a second. All right, I'm back. Basically, the story of my life. Whenever I try to make a video and record things, I get Amazon dropping off 15 packages, Amazon workers parking in front of my house to reorganize their truck. The dogs are going crazy. Landscapers are coming to cut the grass. That's just the way it goes, right? And they're still going crazy out there. So, but I'm going to keep pushing through because I can't keep stopping this. The video is going to be 4 hours long, and I really don't want to do that. So here we are right now. We've arrived where we're definitely looking more cinematic than when we started. If I am to, let's just make another virtual copy of this so I can zero it out just to kind of show you where we were. This is where we were on the image. This is where we are now. This was the original one that I had. Not much different. You can see kind of the same thing. And I'll dial it in. I'll get to where I want to go. But again, a big difference from here to here. All right. Now I'm going to go back up and I'm going to revisit some of my basic panel and some of my my curves here, my curve panel. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to bring down the exposure just a little bit, okay? There it is. That's perfect. That's exactly where I want to be. The highlights, I'm going to bring them up a little bit because I don't like this washed out feeling up here, okay? It's too much for me. I'm going to bring up my highlights just a little bit, okay, right there. I'm going to bring my shadows up just a little bit. I'm going to bring my blacks up just a little bit. You could see by bringing up the blacks, right, it kind of flattens out the image. And when you flatten out the image like this, you kind of give it that overall cinematic look, that vibe, okay? A little bit of texture on this maybe. You can dehaze too, but dehaze, you got to watch out. Dehaze is a very powerful tool. You see the extremes here, okay? You take too much, you minus dehaze a little bit too much, it gets a little too strong. You pump it up too much and you start crushing colors, and you know, it could get a little wonky. I'm not actually going to mess with it at all. I'm just going to leave it right where it is. So that's kind of where I am right here. I may bring up this little hook a little bit, and I might actually bring up my blacks just a little right here. And I am going to call this one done. So we went from here, okay, to here. All right. And just to give you an idea, if we just were to run that same crop, this is where we were, okay? So Let's get this even so you guys can see. You know, this is close. All right, so this is where we are, and this is where we were. So again, it takes a little bit of time, but that's how you achieve this kind of look. All right, now here's a little tip for you guys. Right, once you achieve a look like this that you like, okay, you can make a preset out of it if you want to. You can simply go up, and all you have to hit is develop new preset. Okay, once you hit new preset, here's all the parameters that you want to apply. So maybe you don't want to apply the mask, right? Because your subject mask and everything else might be different in different positions. So adding a mask might not be the best thing for you to do. But you can add your vignetting, you can add your grain, your calibration, your lens correction, your color grading, your detail. You can add all this, right? You can create a group. So maybe you want to call this cinematic presets, and then you can name each preset that you want, and it will show up over here. Okay, that's how I create presets. Obviously, I add more work into it, but that'll give you an idea what to do. You can also come down to get away from the preset talk there for a minute. I didn't mess with this on this, but you can also mess with your calibration down here too. And this is a powerful tool, and I'll bring that up in another image that I show you real quick. But let's just say we like the way that this came out, right? We like the way that this image came out. Right click, okay, develop presets. You can copy everything that you did, and it'll bring up that same panel. But let's just say, like, you know, you don't want to copy certain things, then you can just uncheck it. For me, I want to copy all this. So I copied my presets, right? And then let's just say I bring up this image here, and let's create a virtual copy, all right? Just so I can show you the apply. And let's reset this. So here's the original image. Now, I have this image here, okay? I'm going to copy the settings, copy my settings, copy. I'm going to go over here, right click, and I'm going to paste, right? Or actually, I don't have to. I can use this paste right here. Paste. There you go. Okay. Now, is that done? No, that's not done for me, but it gives me a strong starting point to be very cohesive in all my images that I'm creating, right? So if I want all my images to kind of look the same, that's where I would go. But with this one, let's just say I already added that. I'm going to go in. Let's do that same cinematic crop, 2.39 by 1. Give you that anamorphic look right there. Let's correct this as well. Okay, let's auto correct that. Boom, perfect. And let's enter that. And there we are. And now what do I want to do with this? Not much. I don't want to do much at all. Maybe bring up the exposure a little bit. I have not messed with the mask on this, so I don't even know if it's going to grab the subject. It may. Wow, pretty smart. It does kind of mess with the bike here a little bit. So that's not really the best thing for me to do. So I am actually going to get rid of this mask here. I'm going to trash that mask. I don't want to do anything with the mask. But what I will do is I will gradient this again like this, okay? And I'm going to go a little bit wider on this like this. I'm going to invert. You see this little invert check mark right here? Invert that. And now I'm going to just bring down the exposure just a little bit like that, okay? And done. Let's just, you know what? There we go, done. Now, if I wanted to go down and mess with these calibration, here's what you can do with this. You can kind of change the tonality, like the color hue of everything here by kind of messing around. If I wanted to make these more red, I can push more teal on the blue primary, okay? And I can actually make that a little bit strong, or I can take away the red. On this one, I'm going to kind of leave it right where it is. You know, you can go into your green primary hue, and you can kind of see where that changes things as well, kind of brings it back more orange and whatnot. I'm going to leave that right where it is, and let's see what the red will do. Should push the blues a little bit. I actually like that, bringing it up a little bit to the orange and right there, just like that. Now, I do want to brighten him a little bit, so I'm actually just going to use a simple brush, okay? I am going to, you know, we have to remember that, you know, we can still use our regular tools. We don't need to always use all these smart masks, right? So I'm going to adjust my brush just a little bit. I'm going to paint him just a little here like this overall. I don't want to go crazy, nothing wild. Let me make this brush just a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to bring his shadows up just a little bit, just like that, a little bit. When people go crazy and you'll see this, right? You'll see this on certain people's images, and they're like, yeah, I don't know, I just can't get it to make it look natural. Well, yeah, because you overdid it, guys. Sometimes if you want to bring the exposure up, don't even worry about the exposure. Just worry about the shadows, okay? Look at how powerful the shadows are. This is just shadows all the way down, shadows all the way up. Even with the shadows all the way up, it almost doesn't look like it's destroyed, but I don't need to go that crazy with it. So I'm going to go a little bit with the shadows and a little bit with the exposure, and it looks natural enough where I didn't kind of destruct or, you know, cause any images, cause any artifacts in the image where it looks like totally fake. You got to use a light hand when you edit. You can't go crazy with things. I mean, you start getting a little wild and things start to fall apart really, really fast. And depending on what you're editing with too, I mean, not all sensors are created the same. Luckily, I'm using a very good sensor here with the Leica Q2, so it does handle, you know, latitude movements really well, but nonetheless, you still have to be careful of what you're doing. Okay, so I like that, right? You know, again, just going back into something simple like this, I just pulled this up today, just like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool, because I like the way that, you know, she was walking here, and it was one of the girls we were shooting with. But let's just create a virtual copy of this image and reset it. Here's where we started from. It's a nothing image, right? But we can add it, right? Maybe the image doesn't stand on its own, but added to a set like what I'm doing here, maybe it does. So I'm going to do that same crop, the 2.39, I believe, by 1. And here I am, okay? I have it cropped. So how am I going to color it? Well, let's just say I don't want to do all the editing. This isn't me pushing my presets on you, but again, I could just go up right now to cinematic grade number 3 and pick cinematic grade 3, adjust the exposure a little bit. You know, maybe bring my contrast down a little. Let me bring my highlights up, my blacks down a little bit on the clarity, just to get these a little crunchy. Let me see where I am with my sharpening is good. I'm not going to mess with anything on this because it may turn it. Yeah, see, it turns it. So let me get rid of that. And there we are. I'm done. I'm done with that one. So, you know, let's take that same theory and let's go over to something like this. Now, this one, I completely added a lot to it. There are masks involved and everything else. So, again, you take an image like this, and I know I'm running through these kind of quick, but I didn't want to make this like a huge, long, drawn out, you know, video, but I do want to show you guys these things. Let's reset this image. Let's create a virtual copy. Let's reset, and let's go back in again. Let's get that look that we want. How do you get the look? How do you get that 23 by, all you have to do is go into enter custom, right? You can just dial it in right here. So you can go 2.39 times by 1, okay? And there it is. All right, so it kind of gives it to you. I don't know if I did that on this one. I believe I did. Regardless, there's the crop, all right? And it should show up in your crop angles afterwards. But let me see. Do I want to add one of my presets to it? I think I did on this one. I'm trying to remember which one I did add. I could probably actually, I'll just go into the history. Here's another thing. I don't know if you guys have ever saw this, but you can go into your history. I might have just I might have just added something. That's what it is. But when you go into, let's just say you go into something like this, if you go into your history, you can see everything that you did, right? And it's going to show you everything that you did right here on your history. So I'm going to go into this one, and I'm just gonna kind of mess around, and let's go into my cinematic presets, and I'm going to pick something that I like. I'm just going to scroll through these. Again, guys, these are starting points. They are by no means one click and you are ready to roll. But there are a ton of them on here. There's definitely a flavor for somebody. And let's just go back up to the cinematics here. And I like this one that has a little bit of warmth in it, like this, okay? Boom, I'm gonna bring this down a little bit. I'm gonna bring my contrast down a little bit. I'm gonna bring this a little bit warmer right here. I am going to take some vibrance out of this a little bit. And now what do I want to do here? Right now I'm going to actually use this. I'm going to do a subject, and it picked my entire subjects that I want, and I want to bring them up a little bit because I don't want them lost, okay? I actually want them to be kind of almost like the focal point. Everybody immediately is drawn towards the center of this lady going across in her little scooter, but I like these people over here, and I like that they're not immediately apparent, but they are a strong part of the image because it does show depth as well. You guys may agree, you may not. That's okay. Again, everything we do here is subjective. It's not, a one-size-fits-all type of thing. Do I like the colors here? I do. I mean, here was the original one that I picked. It's pretty close to the same. Maybe I make things a little darker. I bring my darks down a little bit, maybe add a little bit more contrast to it. And maybe I call that one done. I don't really want to mess around too much with it. Let me see if I autocorrect. It kind of flattens it out. That's cool. I'll mess with that there. And like, let's just say this one I wanted to add a frame to. I can add, my white frame or my black frame to it, but I'm going to leave it right where it is and call that one finished. Let's go into this one here. Let's again create a virtual copy and reset the image. This is where we are. This is where we could end up. And let's just say I want to pick one of my cinematic grades. I think I picked 3 on this. So that's cinematic grade 3. Auto correct over here just to straighten the angles out on the building. And I want to make this a little bit softer. So I bring my contrast slider down right here. And maybe I bring the exposure up just a little bit. And now let me go into my vignette. I'm going to bring my vignette down just a little bit. And I'm going to go into subject mask real quick. And I'm going to pick subject. It should pick her up. Yes, it does. And a little bit on the shadows to bring her up just a little bit. Not too much. Here's artificial. This is like, somebody added a sticker to the front of your photo. And this is somebody added a marker and took her away. Very powerful tool, though, with Facebook now. Facebook. What did I call Facebook? Very powerful tool. Well, Facebook's a powerful tool also, but with Lightroom now. So just a little bit on her right here, the subject, just to pop her out. Again, you can see without it, with it, just that little bit to kind of separate her. And let's call that one. Real quick, I want to bring up my highlights a little bit and my whites. And I'm going to be done with that one. Okay, that one's done as well. And last but not least, one of my favorite images from that day, shot with the Leica Q2 as well. Crop this one. I don't know that I want to really go crazy on this one. What does a 16:9 look like? 16:9 is not bad if I straighten everything out. And I'm going to go right here, close, and I am going to definitely roll with cinematic grades on this one. And it just looks so good with the shadows and the light. You can go kind of softer, You can go a little bit more golden hour. I'm going to go with 1. I love 1 on this. It looks great. I've done this one many times. I have not messed with the mask on this, so let me do a subject mask. Let me bring her up just a little bit. And on the shadows, she needs some on the exposure, just to get this hat to pop in her shoulder, and, you know, just her overall being in the image. And the other thing that I want to do is I want to take the contrast down a little bit. My blacks, I am going to bring them up just a tad. And I do want to pump up some of my my saturation on some of these. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to hit the door. I'm going to bring the saturation up a little bit here on the door. And that also brings up some of it over here. I'm going to bring some of this up. And I'm going to actually bring the luminance up as well, just a little bit, because I want these highlights to pop, right, guys? And that's where I'm going to go with that. Okay, done. So now when I go back in, obviously my library is going to be a little bit, you know, doubled up, but you can see that we have a very, very nice cohesive style of images. I know I didn't hit all of these, but again, you saw how I created this from scratch, and then you saw how I created some of these just by simply copying my settings and adding my preset. Let me strike that. Copying my settings and pasting them to a new image. And then you saw my quick and easy way of doing it by just adding one of my presets that I've created. By no means is this, you know, for me to sell my presets to you. This is more or less me showing you how I edit these style images to get that kind of popular look that some of these photographers are, you know, posting on Instagram and Facebook and in their catalog, you know, just to kind of give you that overall cinematic look of, you know, something like this. It's not the hardest thing in the world to do, but it does take some time. It does take some knowledge of color science, complementary colors, and you kind of go from there. I apologize if this video is a bit long. I will try to do more of these where I show you how I edit, but then I also show you what my presets can do. Yes, would it be great if you guys picked up a preset from me? That would be amazing. But I would really more or less, it would be more valuable for me for you to learn something and me to be able to help you out and teach you something that you can use on your own images than anything else. Visit my website. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. We will definitely be doing more. If you want to experience what my presets are like, but you don't feel like dropping, you know, the couple dollars for the preset, join my subscriber, my emailing list on my website. Links are below, and you can download a free preset for just subscribing to my email list. I appreciate it. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please put them down below or email me or go right through my website, hit me up on Instagram. There's a million ways to get in touch with me. Again, I appreciate your time. I hope you found this video helpful, and I look forward to bringing you more, and I hope you enjoyed this one. I will see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.